All right, let's get started here. I'd like to welcome everybody here to this really exciting webinar today. I'm Dave Lundahl, CEO for Insights Now, and the topic for today is all about AI-powered menu creation. And it's an area where I think there's huge advantages. Really excited in terms of the way that we're working in partnership with Charlie Baggs. And as a way of introduction here, I'm going to let Chef Charlie, he's the president of Charlie Baggs Culinary, and Carrie Sabarin, he's vice president with that organization. You guys can say few words yourselves as introductions.
Well, thank you, Dave. And yeah, we're excited to be here as well. And, it's always a beautiful thing when we can incorporate technology and drive efficiency and increase the output, quality of the output. And yep, and go ahead, Carrie, our vice
Yeah,
president.
hi, I'm Carrie Sabrin. I'm excited to be here as well. I've been able to be a part of menu innovation in the past, and so being able to incorporate AI in this is very exciting. So looking forward to sharing what we have put together with you.
Perfect. So let's continue. So first is a way of before we get into the content today, if anyone has any questions, we want to make this as a good Q&A as well. Well, you can put into the chat, the Q&A, questions and answers option at the bottom of your pages here, so that and just type in any questions as they come and we will be answering them at the end. And that way we can really have a great dialogue and allow everybody to participate. Okay. So question and answers. With that, what we're going to do today is have a conversation. We're going to be presenting what we think is the opportunity and having a discussion about that. We're going to talk about generative AI, which is still new. Everybody's learning. And so this idea of co-creation, glad you said that. So anyways, the topic, the flow for today, what I like to do is, first of all, we'll talk about the opportunity and then how generative AI really is an enabler in so many ways for this area of co-creating or menu design. And then we'll talk about how that integrates into co-design, which is like rapid iterative prototyping. And then we'll do a summary of it and add some times for questions and answers at the very end. Okay, makes sense? All right, so let's get into the content. Now, I'm sure everybody is experimenting with generative AI tools. We're finding that it's an enabler of many things, ways to work, as we say here, smarter, quicker, more creatively, and more collaboratively. The last two are going to be exceedingly important as we talk about menu creation and the opportunities there. So it is ways to save a lot of time and energy. And so this overcomes what we think is we've heard from the industry and in working in this area for some time, challenges in menu innovation. And Charlie and Carrie, please jumping in here, but food service innovation teams, as everybody are constrained in so many ways, to be able to create these innovations, and time, money, and human resources are paramount to these constraints. So the question we asked was, how might we apply generative AI tools to increase creative capacities so smaller teams can do things faster and better, which is going to ultimately save money, because human input, the things that we all do is expensive, and so anyways, that's a opportunity. And so what we sort of picked up on as we started working with this more and more is the concept of human in the loop, so if we can increase the capacity to create here in menu design innovation, So including our behavioral expertise that Insights Now brings, as well as the expertise in co-creating and marrying that with expertise in culinary design, like bringing paper concepts to life, can we then add as a fourth piece to this sort of process the power of generative AI? Now, we have at Insights Now been working with this in a lot of ways using Microsoft Copilot. And there's a number of different tools. Microsoft Copilot we found to be really excellent in many ways. So anyways, that's sort of a way to start. So let's get into our approach. The approach starts with a behavioral sort of insight that we've had for many years. And this is based on good behavioral science, is that people are not going to buy in any new concept for a new product unless it's familiar. And for it to be differentiated from what they're currently doing, it has to be familiar with a twist. And that twist needs to be able to nudge people forward. That means it's something they adopt and understand almost intuitively what the value is for that twist, or it disrupts them, that really forces them to really think and change their behavior in some way. So the idea of familiar with a twist is paramount. So our approach here is to train generative AI, in this case, Copilot, to find twists that address current gaps or tensions or unmet needs in the marketplace when people are going through, like, say, a fast service restaurant or any sort of thing where they're looking at the menu options or making a decision of where they're going to explore for a food service opportunity and experience. So this requires, though, some in-depth insight into food service customer moments of experience. So to find those twists. So anyways, that's our approach. And with that, we created this sort of process. This process is a way to reimagine, concept co-creation by generating insights or pulling insights that have already been created into a way in which you can feed that information to into, in this case, Copilot or any sort of generative AI tool. It's a 5-step prompting sequence that we'll talk through today. And then we're going to go through and talk about how you bring human in the loop there, this co-creation process. And then that could feed into other ways to maybe screen or validate your concepts with people. Then you take these concepts that have been vetted and you integrate that to co-design. And that's where the culinary element of rapid iterative, bringing these paper concepts to life, comes into play. All right, so that we're going to go through this process today. And we're going to do this process today with a case study. The case study is in the idea of customize this moment's landscape for a quick service restaurant. And it starts with a survey. Typically, we do these types of surveys to about 3,000 people. It's online surveys. It's quick and easy to do, addressing target customers for your QSR and really understanding more about eating experiences and so on. You can scale this to be smaller. There's a lot of different ways to do this. But as a point of sort of your understanding of what we did here, this is it. And then from that, you create different types of insights. So Carrie is going to step through what some of the insights that we gleaned here from this type of a research project.
Yeah, so at the high level, you can see we have the insights broken up into 4 different buckets: the opportunity, the consumer moment, choices in the moment, and the aspirational gap. So looking first at that opportunity, we're talking about a QSR restaurant. They're looking for an LTO idea, really wanting to lean into that indulgent kind of treat yourself moment for that consumer who is perhaps picking this up on their way home from work. That moment again is like that driving home from work moment, capturing that impulsive uh, desire for an indulgent burger experience. And we want to make sure that they're choosing this QSR versus, you know, something that they could perhaps make at home, or if they're stopping at a gas station, picking up something from the C-store that's made to order. As we know, C-stores are upping their game, so want to make sure that we're still driving consumers to this QSR. When we look at the choices in the moment, we leveraged research from Data Central to really understand what is trending in the burger world. As you can see, whimsical carriers, savory jams, mashups, like something that's familiar but in burger form, and then spicy, which we're hearing a lot about now, which is that combination of sweet and spicy flavors, which has really been driven by hot honey as of late. So the aspirational gap here is to try something new and interesting, such as like perhaps a global flavor, or maybe an application that's more suited for mid-scale or fine dining, but in a way that's more approachable. This is kind of the premiumization of the QSR that we've seen over the last couple of years. Like, I want to try something new, but I also want it to be familiar.
Yeah, and this research that we did, the methodology, is really looking at people's aspirations. Other types of research might be finding opportunities where it's much more fundamental, not aspirational, but something that people are concerned about, or a fear they're trying to overcome, or whatever. But in this case, it's these burger concepts you'll see is trying to fulfill gaps between what people are currently experiencing and where they would like to go.
Yeah, for a chef, we're always looking for data that can provide kind of guardrails around our creative process, because we want to be very targeted as well. So this information has been really fun to work with. It's really inspired our culinary team.
Fantastic. All right. So let's get into, with that sort of content, that sort of learning and focus, how do we train these generative AI tools? And what we have learned is that it's all about the art of the prompt or prompt sequences. And prompt sequences, this 5-step sequence we're going to talk through, this is a way to be conversational. If you haven't used generative AI tools, it's a conversation. You're typing in content, information that is, very conversational. I'll show you an example here. And we've developed a process of these sequences that are sort of different prompts that are interrelated, kind of in a command or learning or providing information to the generated tool, and then some sort of answer format.
And David, what was interesting for me is that, in ideations, we always have a mixture of people, so we get a broad range of ideas. But this was so fast and quick, and the ideas were so kind of full encompassing. It really gave you a total view of what's possible.
Mm. Yeah. So what was that? So this is the way we start. I work for a QSR. It sells burgers, fries, beverages with a drive-through, sit-down type of experience. I like to have some help in developing innovative new burger concepts for our customers based in the US. Okay, so very conversational, and here you go. It'll go, psh, give you a whole bunch of initial sort of output.
Yeah, and when we looked at this, we thought, wow, this is really quite a breadth and quite a range of where we could go. So this really opened up our minds to where we might be able to go.
And then from that, we developed a bunch of constraints that were really important. So Carrie or Chef Charlie, you provided
Yeah.
these to us, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we know working with QSRs, there's a limit to the number of new ingredients that can be brought in, especially for LTOs. So we wanted to use the constraint of understanding not only the back of house equipment, it has to be prepared on an electric griddle, but also use the current ingredient landscape that is available. So we had this an ingredient list, as well as that how to prepare it on the electric griddle as this prompt to kind of help narrow in those original ideas.
Yep. So you provide that, and the response is like, okay, here you go. And you'll notice, the ingredient lists are very much in line with what that prompt, that constraints that we entered in, and you get some different types of ideas. It's very very quick, and so
Yeah, Dave, what's important here is that if these ideas come up and they're not what we're looking for, or for some reason we want to hit the refresh button, you can actually go back and rephrase it or reposition it, right? To
right,
keep diving deeper at any
yeah,
given point. Yeah.
yeah, and this it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% accurate. If you look down number 5, the Southwest Veggie Burger, it says ingredient lamb patty. That's not veggie to me. But that's okay, because these are just ideas. In fact, if you run this prompt twice, you're going to get a slightly different a list of things. And that's okay, because these are ways to just increase your creative capacity. They're just ideas.
Yeah.
So from here, we're going to feed utilizing the insights from the prior research that Carrie went through. Okay. So, so I have specific insights to guide new concept creation. Okay. Well, number one, what's the opportunity? You list that, or if you have it somewhere, you cut and paste it in. And you can add in, what is the moment here? Is the driving home moment, as Carrie discussed. Third, you could say, okay, these are some of the biggest aspirational gaps. And then last, something about the consumer trends, as Carrie went through, so you could just feed this information into this prompt, and then let it generate some further ideas.
Yeah. When we saw this, the first one being Korean, it just so happens that this is a trend right now that we're working on, and we're getting a lot of demand for, kind of South Korean trends. So that one really resonated with us. The donut bacon burger, that was, you talking about whimsical. That
Yeah.
was a little bit out of the box, and, actually a really cool idea. And I've done this before, and even though it seems like it might be too sweet, you can do it where it's really a nice balance of taste. Yeah. So this gave us a lot of ideas, and in a
Yeah.
typical situation, we might have, 4 to 8 chefs sitting around the table on a whiteboard coming up with ideas. And we would probably come up with things like this, but probably within an hour. So if you've got 4 people, that's a 4 hours, that's a half of a workday, basically. This is so much quicker, and it's very iterative. You can just there's human intervention in this whole process, which is what I really liked about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so for our purposes, we decided to zoom in on that donut bacon burger. And I know, Dave, you're going to continue to talk about how we further
Yeah.
prompt AI on that one.
Yeah, for sure. So then it's like, okay, let's focus on the donut bacon burger and generate more ideas, with a national or cultural flair, and make them super indulgent with surprising combinations, and including jalapeno poppers. So
That's,
was an idea
yeah.
that must have popped up, right?
Yeah, that's
So
kind
to
of the
speak.
original sweet and spicy, if you think about it. Honey's kind of taken that spot, but the jalapeno
Hmm.
popper has that nice blend of cream cheese and the spiciness of the jalapeno. So wanted to get an idea of that spicy flavor without having to have every one be a hot honey application.
And this is what we got in return, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
this is where, Chef Bryce and I kind of executed this project from the human culinary standpoint. And number 4 and 5 really resonated with each
Yeah.
of. We're seeing these flavors, being more mainstream and familiar, and we knew how to make them craveable.
Yeah. Yeah. So from that, we get to this next set. Now we didn't. We're not going to show you the results for this because we can go on and on and on. But one technique we can go from here is to apply a framework that called Scamper. And Scamper is a tool to create more twists on something. So you feed it an idea and say, I want to apply Scamper. And what Scamper is, and what we did is we trained prior. So now anytime we utilize Scamper, it'll just put it in a prompt. It knows what that is. And what Scamper is takes a concept and says, I want to substitute something, or I want to combine something, or I'm going to adapt something, or I'm going to minify or magnify something, like supersize it or make it really small. I'm going to put it to another use. I'm going to eliminate things like I'm taking out sugar or something, or and then or reverse, like making one flavor prominent, whereas it was a subdominant part. In terms of the flavor profile. So this is another way you can generate literally, all sorts of twists very fast, and to come up with more and more ideas that you can bring the human into the loop. So from that, we had all these ideas, right? And so we're focusing on the Indian and the Korean burger ideas. So he said, please find a description. This is what we did. It was really cool here. We says, provide a title, a product description, what the problem and tension is being addressed, what's unique about this concept, the benefit, and put it into the context as if you were a reviewer, putting a review of this into a magazine or wherever, of what this sort of product would be when it was launched as a new food at a restaurant. Okay. And it's a great prompt. And so from that, we got these sort of things.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Indian
Go
bacon
ahead.
jalapeno popper burger. Carrie, we were our mouths were watering, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's helpful to kind of understand, what makes this unique, what the tension is going to be addressed, the benefit. Typically these innovation sessions include both marketing and culinary. So since I'm kind of the marketing representative of this, maybe I would refine it. It's if when we got to the final build, but at least it's a place to start to kind of say, to give validation to these paper concepts.
And then here's the review, which is I thought pretty well written.
Yes. Doesn't it make you want to try it?
I hope this is what everybody says of products we create. Yeah, this is nice.
Yeah. So anyway, and then for the Korean donut bacon jalapeno popper burger title, you get the same, right? And it's pretty. I thought when I read these, it's like, yeah, that's a pretty good summary. As Copilot is pretty good at, as well as the reviews, right?
The chefs out there, just keep in mind at this point, the chefs now are just starting to frame how they would make this. And this just keeps giving us more and more ideas. So you'll see what we ended up coming up with. It was a great revelation.
Yeah. So before we get into that rapid prototyping, there's a few more things you can do, and I'm just going to give you some more ideas. These are things that we do in other sort of research projects, but you can actually go back to bring in the human in the loop. You could actually have a workshop, and a workshop could be you bring in whoever your team is. It could be stakeholders, the culinologists, marketers, whoever is involved in your project, and you can have different rounds as we're doing. You can continue to drill down and so on. The prompting sequence we developed with the culinary team, but you can do so much more from that. Another thing you can do is you can bring in focus groups. You bring in actually your target consumers, or people that are going to be eating at your restaurants, and you can have them see what their reactions are to these different sort of concepts. Another thing you can do is you can create bigger ideation sessions. It could be one part of something. If you're trying to develop something that's more long term, it could be part of a session like that, something that's more strategic. And last, you can develop, you can actually say, I want to develop something for people of this type. Okay. And you can create, if you have research about different personas, you can say, I want to see how this persona might react, okay, to this type of a concept. And it's a new approach that we're still vetting, but I think it's got some promise in certain activities. Any more thoughts,
Well,
Carrie?
I,
Or yeah,
I
it's
was just
pretty.
going to say, Dave, um, when we're developing, our goal is always to develop for the consumer. So the more feedback we can get and the quicker feedback we can get, the more cost effectively is really important. Because we're not usually preparing food for the board of directors. We're preparing it for their customers. So
Mhm.
for us, it's really important to have that perspective, and this is where the human intervention comes in here. You can interplay it wherever you feel like you need to, and you
Right.
can validate decisions as you go.
Yeah. Now, another thing you can do is, and this is another step we didn't, um, you know, we don't always do this in research, as we'll do in our summary, but you could actually go through quantitative techniques to screen or validate. And just as an example of this, you can take, let's say, these different concepts, and you can provide them to consumers. This is a survey technique, and you could have them choose. Pick your winners, pick the ones that are better, and then actually rank them, or provide information like purchase intent and so on. And we call this a tournament, and it'll actually float at the top, something that like 100% tournament index score means is kind of average in terms of what people are picking, but things that have higher score are chosen more frequently, and so on. So that's one way of screening through. If you have a lot of ideas and you're deciding, well, which of these Korean or Indian ideas, are better, you can actually, take further twists and screen things down. Another thing you can do is, once you selected a concept and you think it's the one that you want to really look at, you can validate that through this technique. And you can have something called a max diff technique, where you provide 3 different concepts, and then have them pick the best and the worst. So you get a ranking, and then 3 more, best and worst and ranking. And you do this multiple times. You do that first for just the category without the new product. So you actually get a ranking, and these are products 1 through 7. And you can take, like 7 different sort of alternative menu options. Could be competitors at different types of SQR, and then you can then do it post, when you've included the Korean donut bacon burger, and you can look at the change, and that gives you something we call lift. Or you can actually look at, in this case, product 2 and 3 were impacted. The new product, the Korean donut bacon, took choice share most away from 2 and 3. And so it's a way of really understanding what the impact could be, and whether you might have a winner through a survey technique. So anyways, it's just some other things you can do before you get into this rapid prototyping, which we're going to get into now, which I'm really excited to show.
Yeah, so if you've been a part of an innovation session, this should look very familiar to you. This is when we take all of those paper concepts, the ones that we've agreed that have promise, and the chefs get in the kitchen and start putting their own unique spin on them, and Chef Charlie will tell you how the builds ended up in a minute. But just suffice it to say that we went through a couple different iterations on all the concepts to get them just right. Did a tasting evaluation there at the end, and then without further ado, I'll turn it over to Chef Charlie to kind of show how those concepts came to light.
Yeah, so yeah, we got in the kitchen and Bryce and I were talking. He took Indian, I took Korean, and we went separately. The only thing we discussed is, his was more of a smash burger, so I knew mine was going to be more of a pub burgers type of style. But then once I started thinking about it, I said, well, why don't I make this like a Juicy Lucy? And that was the first thing. Because, that's kind of a novelty and that's something that it's a specialty and it provides excitement. It's kind of whimsical. Then I said, instead of the jalapeno popper I did, I want to use fresh. I want to add some fresh elements. So I added the fresh jalapeno slices and some fresh kimchi. Made a Juicy Lucy. The other thing that I did was different because since I wanted to do the Juicy Lucy, I needed to have a matrix that was a little bit more solid. So instead of using like an aioli to create a sauce, I use cream cheese. And I add the gochujang to the cream cheese. Then I said, I'm going to take the caramelized onions and also add those to the cream cheese. And, kept that refrigerated, put that on the inside of each of the burgers. It was very efficient to do. And ended up growing up my burger and it was just like oozing, really exciting. And
Oh,
then
you're making me
yeah,
hungry, Charlie. Goodness
I took,
sakes.
so this has got salt in it, a lot of protein and fat, a little bit of acidity. And then I decided to go ahead and use the donut. So I cut the glazed donut in half and then I grilled the inside parts of the donut, just like you would a bun. But then I put the sticky part of the glazed donut on the inside so it wouldn't get on your fingers. And originally, I wasn't too keen on this concept, putting a donut in a burger, an all-American comfort food. But it turned out it wasn't overly sweet like you would think it would be. It blended really well with the saltiness and the spice of the jalapeno. So it was a really unique way to create that. Would you call it a spice and sweet, sweezy or
Spicy.
spicy, spicy? Yeah, it was right on trend. And then, I threw bacon in there because we had it as an ingredient, but that would be an easy one to remove to save costs. But so this Korean Juicy Lucy donut burger really scored well with the people that tasted it. It was really a lot of fun. And the the really important part here is it felt like I was using humans to help us do this because we came up with very similar ideas. Just the amount of time it took, this whole thing was like in a couple hours we got to this point. It was really fascinating, and I thought provided a lot of really good data for our particular consumer group. So we knew that we were kind of hitting on something that was realistic. And all these were prepared on an electric griddle, so it was perfect. And I don't know if am I doing the next burger too or just this
Yeah.
one.
No, well, yeah.
Yeah, so this one, we use the like Sugar Foods has these fried jalapeno pieces. And I thought, let's use those. That'll add some texture and a little bit of spice. So for this one, we basically just did a kind of an Indian curry spice on the burger. This one, we did leave the glazed donut, as you see, but that could easily be flipped, or you could even do a different type of bun if that was too much for you. But flavor-wise, it was just so delicious. It really resonated well with a traditional, authentic curry taste and flavor. But it was pretty mild, and that then we put the cheese on there, the American and cheese, and that just brought it right back home for us. So one was a smash burger and one was the Juicy Lucy. Had no idea that we were going to head in this direction until we started getting data and it started creating guardrails for us. And yeah, so it was really enjoyable.
Yes, and it was really enjoyable for those of us who got to taste it as well.
Yep, of course. That's always a benefit in the kitchen. Use
Yeah.
that. But no, yeah, and
Uh,
as you know, as product development chefs, Dave, we work on a lot of projects. So when we can
Mhm.
make things more efficient, not only for our team, but for our clients, it could be a cost savings. But beyond that, I just really like the intervention. I thought we came up with ideas quicker and faster than we would have in person. And the reach that the internet has, it pulled information in from all kinds of places. So uh, I'm really sold on this.
Great. Yeah, that's we're excited that it created the value on the back end and accelerated, the creative capacity, of making these different iterations in the design way, focused on the insights.
Doing it,
And really, it's a remarkable way of human in the loop, this iteration.
but didn't take away from the human part. That was I was a little apprehensive at the beginning, as you remember. But what this did for me is the decision makers and the leadership team were able to make decisions and pivot so quickly to provide the development team information.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yep.
with being leaner, you got one or two people making decisions, you work together. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think too, having led or been a contributor to multiple innovation sessions in the past, one of the things that stood out to me in this process is that typically when you're starting that innovation session, you're pulling inspiration from multiple sources like a market immersion, trends data, consumer information, and all of those are really important and still have a role in this process. The difference is that when we got to that co-creation part, where we're actually coming up with concepts, we're starting with a dirty paper instead of a clean paper. And so that really helped us, kind of get further faster. And, suffice it to say that we're just showing you a fraction of the concepts that were generated by AI. In reality, there were many, many more. So I think in terms of being able to have a starting off point, I thought that was very exciting.
Hmm. Yeah.
What's great about this as well, Carrie and Dave, is that we can work with a food manufacturer to execute this on behalf of a chain to bring in really relevant research, or we can work directly with the chain. So this allows us to be really flexible in how we go to market with this and how we provide the information.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a quote that we got from you, but I think this says the same thing. This is really a step forward in ways to elevate this creative capacity. Yeah. Well, Carrie, you were to summarize how you do this in operation. If what's the what's the approach here?
Yeah, so there's four steps basically. First, pre-work, that's where we kind of work collaboratively with you to identify that the opportunity, the consumer moment, choices in the moment, aspirational gap, understanding any sort of back of house limitations. Maybe you have specific consumer data you want to include. All of that would be in that pre-work phase. The co-creation phase, that we have those preloaded paper concepts that we've generated from AI. That's when we bring in your culinary team, your marketing team, and then further flesh out those paper concepts. So again, we're not starting with a clean slate here. We're using AI to help get that first draft. Then we go into co-design. That's where we get in the kitchen. We do the tasting evaluation. And then post-production is kind of that insights activation and reporting, where we kind of wrap up everything that we've done in one report so that you have that moving forward. Of course, with any process, there's the ability to flex and contract as needed. So some possible additions here at the end, or you can see there by phase. So we have a way to look at the craveability of your menu, look at your top 10 menu items, determine why they're craveable through scatter graphs to make sure that the concepts that we come up with match the craveability for that your consumers desire. Also, survey of your consumer motivations. We could also use a market immersion as a way to provide that inspiration both for the human and non-human team members. when we look at the co-creation phase, as Dave kind of talked us through, we can screen, test, and validate those paper concepts. And then in the co-design phase, we can actually bring in consumer for a qualitative evaluation.
Yep.
Yep. And Carrie, you've kind of answered Carrie Janet's question about can you share tips on applying this process to specific items? So, you might, when you're setting up the guardrails, you might know what's desirable, like how it's cooked, this type of thing, what's the age group, demographic, characteristics, but you might also know what you don't want to do. So the way that you train AI and create uh, prompts, I think, is the key to training the AI, is like really being honest with what you already know, but ask really good questions about what you want to learn. And
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So a lot of flexibility in scoping. How big is this? How focused is it? What do you know? What don't you know? And then how much you want to bring in consumers, participants in this process. So much flexibility in terms of trying to meet budget against the needs. So now what we can do here is we like to have your turn. If you have questions out there, I think Charlie just started to answer one of the questions that we have here. But if you have any questions, now's the time. Go ahead. So you said success using AI was using prompts. How do you develop your prompts for this project? Okay. So I'll start this, but you guys jump in as well. Is that we looked at this process as starting with a very simple conversation, and then adding in these steps things that are much more constraint oriented and or research oriented to focus in every stage, further the concept build, so to speak. And then from there, you can further look at ways of taking specific concepts, like the Korean donut bacon burger, or the what was the other one? Sorry, but take, yeah, thank you. These other ones, and you can really then focus on. You can create more twists in specifically ways that you want to go to further develop those. So to answer your question, it's learning, and then your team engaging, and then taking it to the next step. But in a way, you start with your constraints, you feed it your consumer information, you look at creating more ideas and then narrowing it down, and in the end, bringing those concepts into like a ways that will help the culinary team bring those concepts to life.
Yeah, so Dave, like as an example, take beans for an example. Say you're a company that manufactures beans. So this is a very specific menu item. So you can give it prompts around beans that you don't want to go global, but you want to be American regional trends only. It needs to be something that's considered a comfort food. Like you could put guardrails around it in any way. So you can focus on really specific menu items. And that's, I don't remember where it was in the process, but that's when the team gets together and says, what what are the conditions and how do we want to continue to fine tune this? So
Mm,
still really relevant human intervention here. Like all
yeah.
the people that love doing ideations, there's still a lot of fun and you have a big part in it. It's just the parts are very concentrated as to what you do. And then AI does work that saves like 4 to 8 hours worth of time. So you're just able to make decisions and move quicker. And
Yep.
and keep in mind, if you go down a rabbit hole and you don't like where you are for whatever reason, you know, AI is not the end all. It's an ideation platform, just like other ideations. So you have to know when to pivot and to keep massaging the tool.
Right, right. Another question was, being new to AI, what's the learning curve like, to be able to get results like this? And my answer to this is you need, experiment, get going, try it. Um, um, get yourself a tool where you can experiment around. We're giving you a framework, and we're happy to provide information. We're happy to set up an exclusive workshop just for you, where you can get a starting point and learn. Because we're excited. We believe this is an area that the industry can really advance and create more ways, faster ways to create winning products in the marketplace. So click through this QR code. It'll help us create this sort of a session where we can set up with you and your team. But most likely it is just learning, and these frameworks like Scamper, that's really something that we've learned and we're applying. There's other types of frameworks that we're learning about every day and we're applying. So those are the skills that we're glad to implement and help you out, no matter what your ideas are, or what the type of project scope is, small or large. We're glad to help.
Dave, and I think when we were kind of talking about this idea, you had mentioned the importance of Microsoft Copilot versus Chat GPT. I didn't know
Right.
you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, so Chat GPT is an open system. That means that when you engage with it, or feed it information like insights, those insights are now part of Chat GPT's sort of knowledge base. And so if you want to keep it contained, there's ways to keep it contained so that we can actually keep it contained for specific clients, and that we worked through with the Copilot. So it's a way of compartmentalizing and keeping the security and the confidentiality that so many companies want. Keep that there. So again, if people have more questions about that, be glad to, when we talk through whether it's a workshop or just, let us know about how that works. Again, this is really important. I know some companies are not even allowing people to use generative AI tools at this point because of the concerns that IT may have. And we believe there's easy answers to that, ways of structuring things. Copilot for us is the tool because we're a Microsoft house, and we're finding it as a really good platform for doing these sort of ways for increasing creative capacity. All right. Any other questions? Well, good. Well, any final comments, Chef Charlie, Carrie, you may have?
No, I mean, I think this is extremely exciting. I look forward to working on projects like this. If you have something in mind, please reach out to any one of us. We'll be happy to help you. And thank you so much for your time today.
Super. Yeah. And so in the future, we do these webinars once a month. So if you're on our mailing list, please, or if you're not, please sign up. And we're glad to continue to help move the industry forward, sparking ideas, creating better ways for more insights and more value we can create. So thanks so much for your attention today. Bye.
Thank you.